Hey folks, Jimmy here, aka Palette of the Dead. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a fairly late good old Warhammer painting video. Now, as per usual with all these videos, if you like them, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course drop a comment down below. I love hearing back from you guys. It goes a massive way to helping out the channel too. Now, with this video, it is a late festive painting video because, in all honesty, I hadn't finished a model in time for Christmas Day, so yeah, here we are. Anyway, this mini is the Grotmas Gitz, the second Christmas mini that GW released this year. It's a pretty cool one. I really like painting the mini. There are a lot of steps to it that I must admit I've used a lot of paint, and yeah, it's a really good one. I've really thoroughly enjoyed it. So this video is fairly long, so without further ado, I suppose we need to get cracking with it. So first off, we're going to start with the base. The base has been base coated with grey cere. This is a really good base coat. Works very nicely for kind of your snow colour bases. Now, as you can see, I am using a makeup brush because they are better than just dry brushes. You're dry brushing over some Corax white over the top of the grey cere to give that snow a whiter hue. Then I'm going over with a makeup brush again using white scar. Now, the reason I'm using a makeup brush is the bristles are softer, they're a little bit better, and it actually doesn't hold the paint as much as a regular dry brush does because they're slightly longer, and it works pretty damn good. Now, because obviously you have a little grot on the floor, I didn't want to be spending huge amounts of time on this guy, so I used Gut Ripper Flesh contrast paint as the colour for all his skin, and it does exactly the job it needs to do. It's a contrast paint, so over small areas with raised details, you get a bit of contrast on the skin. And then I'm using a bit of Retributor Armour because this base does have that Stormcast Eternal Liberator right on the base, which is pretty damn cool. Now, this is a very tiny area, so you need a good brush with a nice fine tip to get that paint on there. And then there's a ball there, so the way I would do the balls, Stormhost Silver and then contrast paint over the top gives you a nice metallic looking colour for any other things like the balls and stuff like that. And then it's time to give a bit more detail to our little grot here. So a bit of a bad and black for that loincloth that he has covering his nether regions. And obviously because he doesn't want to get his feet cold, he is wearing boots, so you use a bit of a bad and black there. And also the base for the Stormcast Eternal mini that is on the base of this mini. And then I painted up that box that's on the floor as well. So the box is painted up with Fondia Brown, and it's a good base colour. It works very nicely because it's a light colour, a light kind of base already. I wanted a dark colour to kind of break it up and give it a very different look. And then instead of using any kind of washes or anything like that, I'll use Moonlight Brown over the larger flat areas, not going into any recesses because then you don't need to do a lot of washes or anything like that. Now, the other thing I have done already with the Stormcast Eternal mini is I have used a little bit of Reichland Flesh Shade to darken up that gold, and Macragge Blue for the shield. And then, as you can see, I'm using Pterodon Turquoise over that ball, which, as I say, because it's contrast paint, it's slightly thinner, so it does give a nice metallic kind of look over the Stormhost Silver. So it works very nicely for that. And then we're going to move straight on to the actual main mini itself. So it is base coated using Mechanica Standard Grey, and as you can see, I am literally layering on Corn Red over the squig. This is a pretty decent way of doing it. You can go more orange if you want to, or do whatever colour you want really, but I thought Corn Red and that red hue works very nicely. And then, as you can see, super speeding along with the good old makeup brush again, a Mephiston Red dry brush going over just all them raised areas, lightens up that Corn Red and keeps that definition already there. And then exactly the same with Squig Orange. Squig Orange gives it a bit of a more orange hue, and obviously, as you can tell, it worked very nicely over the face of the squig. And then I also use some squig orange over the lips using a regular brush as well, because it just breaks it all up and gives it that decent look to it. And then for things like the gums, I wanted to use pink horror. This gives it a nice kind of contrast to the other paints, makes it stand out. You could go grey if you wanted to give him a bit of, I don't know, halitosis or something like that, but I thought a bit of pink horror does exactly the same job. And then it's time to paint up for more of a detail. So I wanted to go with the presence in the mouth, so I've used Baraknar Burgundy for the first one as a base coat, and we'll paint up the different presents in different colours as we go. The second present I am using Macragge Blue. Now this just adds to it. It's a pretty decent colour, it works very very nicely, and it breaks everything up. So because there's that extra colour details to it, it does kind of it makes the detail kind of stand out a little bit better, gives you more to look at as well. And then using Warflesh for the third box present in his mouth, because yeah, why not? Why not a bit of a kind of burgundy, green and blue as your kind of colours for your presents. And then a bit of Evil Sun Scarlet. So I did want to kind of try to emulate a little bit of the actual main art for it. So I did want to go for an Age of Sigmar box and a 40k box in his mouth. So for the good old Age of Sigmar box, I've used Mephiston Red, well, Evil Sun Scarlet should I say, as a main colour. And I have gone over with Wayland Sunset for the edge highlights as well, to kind of give it that kind of the Warhammer Age of Sigmar box look, because you know that's generally how they've done it. And then over the Baraknar Burgundy, I used Druchii Violet. It's a nice wash. It does very, very nicely. It deepens that kind of colouring over the Baraknar Burgundy as well, so it works very, very well with that. And yeah, it just adds a bit of definition to it. And again, sticking with shades, Drakenhof Nightshade always works very, very nicely over blues. And yeah, just changes the complexion of it, makes it look very, very nice, and makes it stand out as well. And then over the green, I decided to go with Orc Flesh instead, a bit of a contrast paint instead, so it makes everything else stand out a little bit better. And yeah, you can use them a little bit like washes really, if you just dilute them down with one of the mediums. Yeah, and it works a treat, in all honesty. I quite like it. And then back to Wayland Sunset, because I wanted to do all them bows, and I thought the yellow does make it stand out, so why not? So Wayland Sunset for all them bows and everything like that, and there is a reason why later on, because you can use washes to make it dull down a bit better as well. And then I wanted to go through the teeth. So Wraithbone is the main colour I'm using for all those gnashes in his mouth. Some of them are sharp teeth, some of them are blunt teeth, but either way they all need painting up, so a bit of Wraithbone does the trick. And then I wanted to make sure that they look a bit grimy and a bit dirty, and obviously not they're super clean, so a bit of Skeleton Horde. Normally I wouldn't use Skeleton Horde, I'd probably use Seraphim Sepia, but Skeleton Horde works just as well, and it is a very nice paint as well at the same time. It is one of the contrasts, and it does a really, really good job over ivory. And then moving on to the other parts that are hanging out his mouth, Caliban Green over the boughs of the kind of the Christmas tree that he's probably nicked and eaten and partially scoffed, does a very nice trick. It's a very dark green and it works wonders. And then I'm using Xandri Dust over that kind of cylindrical present. You can do whatever colour you want, in all honesty. I was trying to mimic the artwork. I'm not going to lie, I haven't got the steadiest hand of all time for some of the other bits, so a bit of Xandri Dust, you know, wasn't too bad. I can do better with the finer details over the top of it later on. And then obviously it is wearing a bit of a harness, so Fondia Brown for that brown leather effect does work quite nicely, and can be done very, very easily, and kind of mimicked to kind of later on with a bit of scuffing. And then it's time to start painting up the good old grots that are hanging off him. So a bit of Auric flesh goes a long way before any shades. So first off, there is the grot hanging off the side, there is the grot hanging off the top, and then there is one poking out of the bag on its back. So, yeah, don't forget all three of them. And then a bit of Moonlight brown for the edge highlighting over the leather strap for the kind of reins, essentially. Yeah, takes a bit of detail, adds a little bit of niceness to it, and a little bit of warmth over Fondia Brown. And then there is a bell hanging off the bottom of him. I chose to go with Balthasar Gold over the bottom of it. You can go any other colour if you wanted to, entirely up to you, but I thought this is a nice kind of coppery gold colour, and then using some other coppers later on just makes it stand out. And then it's time to start painting up the Grotmas Gitz kind of coat. So he's wearing black, so I chose to go for black as well, because it makes him stand out and makes him look very different from the good old the red gobbo. And then going for that sack, Xandri Dust works very nicely. It's a very good colour to use. You could, if you wanted to use Hobgrot Hide, and it'll do very similar, or Rakkar Flesh. Obviously, Xandri Dust looks a bit better though, in my opinion. Just makes it stand out a little bit better. And then for the fur and the fur line of his coat and the bauble all on the back of his head, Greyseard works very nicely, and then later on you can dry brush over a bit of Corax White. And then I'm using Seraphim Sepia to kind of go over the Xandri Dust. This does work very well. It doesn't sit too heavily over any kind of surfaces, so it goes into all them recesses quite nicely, and does a very good trick of implying shadow over that Hessian sack. And then to kind of change the tone of the Abaddon Black over the kind of coat, Corvus Black works very nicely. It's like an ultra dark grey, so it does a really good job over black surfaces. And then I used Rakkar Flesh over the top of the good old main areas of the Xandri Dust coloured sack. It works pretty well. It's not too bad. I didn't go into any recesses with it. It's entirely up to you if you wanted to go about doing it like that, or if you wanted to go back over with Xandri Dust to kind of bring it back and then use Rakkar Flesh as an edge highlight. But otherwise, yeah, it's not too bad. It does a very good job. The mini, I think, is really good. There are a lot of steps, so I have missed out some colours here and some steps. Obviously, I did paint up the little miniature Space Marine that is hanging out the back of that sack, and I did him using Macragge Blue, a blue shade, good old Drakenhof Nightshade over the top of him, and then just painting up the gun and with a little bit of lead belcher. I also used Hash Hut Copper over the bell, then I used Norn Oil, and then I dry brushed over Hash Hut Copper again, just to bring it back and give it a bit more colour. And if you want to go over the Avalan Sunset for them ribbons, Seraphim Sepia does a very nice job of it. You can use Agrax Earthshade, but I find Agrax Earthshade tends to be a little bit of a harsher colour, and sometimes a little bit glossy as well, so it doesn't work as good as it should do. But otherwise, you can get some really good looking minis out of this. As I say, a lot of steps, so this has been quite a long video, so I am going to get going. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching this late festive painting video. I hope you have a really, really good new year. I hope you have a really, really enjoyable hobby for the new year. And by all means, drop in the comments down below what you plan to get in the new year. What if you're going to plan to get a new army, if you're planning to get anything cool. By all means, let me know down below. But otherwise, thank you very, very much for watching. I will see you in 2024. Bye bye now.